Hey folks, welcome back to GameSpot's live stage show here at Comic-Con 2013. I'm Chris Waters, taking over for Danny O'Dwyer, and I got two gentlemen on stage that I want to introduce you to right now. To my left, Tony Guerrero, editor-in-chief of Comic Vine, and to his left, Jimmy Palmiotti, writer extraordinaire for comics, video games, TV,
obituaries.
Yeah,
I can do it all. I do it all.
Contracts,
absolutely,
the whole
yeah.
gamut.
Yeah.
And so we're here to talk to Jimmy, you guys, about writing for games, because recently you worked up on Injustice,
yes,
and Mortal Kombat versus DC, and I guess let's just open it up with Comic-Con. This video games, TV, comics. That's all these people are here for all that stuff.
We're very happy to have over 150,000 hardcore entertainment junkies getting together and have some fun. I mean, the comics and the games, obviously, this is a combination that has to happen, and it's done in a big way. And with Injustice, it was working with the guys at NetherRealm, trying to get all this together. It was a monster of a game. Mm-hmm. But Justin Gray and I were brought in to work with the NetherRealm guys, and we, instead of just making it a fight game, we made it a real story-driven game, because obviously the gamers are getting a little smarter and a little more, on the ball with things, and it can't just be about fighting anymore. It's got to be as complex as the characters themselves. So
that's a really nice way to say it. Getting very demanding, super picky.
Well, I think when you play 100 games, you want 101 to be something you haven't played before. So
true.
The constant challenge of this stuff is always to make it so it's something they haven't done before. Some kind of move in there, some kind of world building that hasn't been done before, and that's the challenge. I think of the better games are always the ones that introduce something new and exciting.
So that's interesting to me. So for Injustice, right, it's a fighting game.
Yeah.
Does your writing sort of, obviously it has to do with the structure of, playing through as a single character, tracing their stories as they intertwine, right. But does it bleed into the mechanics as well? And they sort of say, all right, well, what kind of moves should Superman be pulling here?
Well, especially when you're dealing with established superheroes like Superman, Wonder Woman, and all these, they have a list of powers, and I guess that's why Justin and I were brought in, because we are so familiar with that world and what the characters could do. But we write the story straight through. We say, what's going to be the greatest story? What's going to get them together? What's going to be the most fun? And then it breaks down the mechanics after that. And again, what we were brought in to do on the Warner side was to make sure that the tone of the characters was right. So when Superman's speaking, when Batman's speaking, it doesn't sound the same. Mm-hmm. And obviously Wonder Woman, and obviously it doesn't all sound like us, because that would be pretty scary. So the tone of the characters have to be unique, and besides just the fighting, the actual characters themselves have to stand out individually, because when you have over a dozen characters, if they're all kind of, the worst things you can do is everything sounds the same, and these characters have a history that's completely different from each other. So tone is a very big thing for us as well.
Certainly.
Were you involved with picking who the core characters were going to be in the game at all, or is it
no? We were brought the list that they had, and we were like, oh, that's a good choice. And if that was the case, I would have had Jonah Hex shooting the gun in the middle of Injustice. But no, they had the guys at NetherRealm had a list of characters they wanted, and then Warner Brothers looked at it and said, okay, you can have that, and why do you want that? And they picked out what they thought were the coolest ones, and actually I think the best ones on the game. And then later on, the additions like Lobo and stuff like that start coming into play. So it was, the fanboy comes out when that happens, because everybody has their favorite character, and it's usually not a popular character. People say Batman, but the second thing they say is the more interesting character.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they say, well, Lobo, or they'll say something obscure, and then you're like, Booster Gold, how are we going to work that in there? So you want to grab the biggest audience you can, so you go for the big characters.
Certainly. Well, I think your fanboy just came out a little bit. You mentioned Jonah Hex earlier. That's also another project you're working on currently, right?
Yeah, I've been, Justin Gray and I have been writing Jonah Hex for 6 years now.
Yeah.
And we're still writing him in All-Star Western Monthly, and he's kind of like our alter ego. They have if I had to make any shirts, it would say, what would Jonah do? Would be my T-shirt, because that's how we write it at this point. We write these stories and we say, well, what would Jonah do in this situation? But when you work with a character that long, you feel like he's part of your family, which is really twisted,
Which is really,
it's fun.
He's not appearing on the mantelpiece, but he's here in your heart.
No, he's definitely here in my heart. I want to do things Jonah would do, but I would get arrested in a heartbeat.
Well, it's good you found an outlet for that.
I do. The writers are very calm in real life, because all their violence and extreme perversions come out in their work.
That's what I tell people when I play shooter games. I'm like, look, this is okay. This is my outlet.
I'm a believer that you know, when we were kids, we had guns, right? Not like the world now. But I never wanted a real gun in life. But I love like a sniper game to play a sniper game, and I don't actually want to go out and do that on any level. That actually satisfies whatever primal urge I have in the game.
You're good.
And after that, I'm just want to eat pizza and drink beer, and I'm fine.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, and chase women, of course. That's Tony, you know. Anyway.
But Jonah does partake in some of these activities as well.
What? Shooting and
Other things.
Prostitutes, and yeah, he's horrible. I mean, he's an alcoholic. He's a bounty hunter. He's doesn't really have great relationships, so he tends to buy them. He's an interesting character. One day they'll make a game out of Jonah, and hopefully I'll be involved.
Well, so let's talk about you've got your projects in comics, you got your projects in games. What would be, I guess, the main difference between approaching those two? You said one of the universal things is tone. You know, the character's got to make sense. It's got to, especially, be consistent with that character's history.
Right.
But where does it diverge? And so what?
It's really easy because for a comic book, you're working with 3 or 4 people. It's the writer, the artist, colorist, the editor, then it goes to print. With a video game, we work with hundreds of people. Just the NetherRealm crew itself is it's a group of people that, honestly, they 24/7 they're making games, and they know their stuff. And then it goes down to designers, and then the guys that actually put together all the mechanics. So it's a giant monster, and it's funny because I never take credit for the games because I can't. It's a group activity. I'm one of the team, It's like there's no one guy that wins it for the team. Although in sports maybe because you have 12 people, but this is hundreds and hundreds of people working on it. But that's the difference. A comic book we can write, draw, and get out within a month. A video game probably takes 2, 3, 4 years. So it's a big difference. But also the stakes are much higher.
Yeah.
If the game, millions of dollars go into these games, and if it launches horribly, people are out of work. If a comic doesn't sell, you do another one. You try again. Sometimes you get fired. Sometimes it doesn't sell. You get booted off, or they go, well, you're not right for that character. They put on it. With a game, the stars have to align, and that's. And when they do, it's a game like Injustice comes to life. And when they don't, I'm sure you guys each have a personal game where I have this thing. I play a game, 5 minutes in, I'm like, I don't want to play this.
That's your cutoff. You're either good to go or
if I got to spend 85 minutes, an hour and a half to sit there and try to figure out how to get my guy to pick up the gun a certain way, I'm just like, the mechanics aren't working for me. Do you guys ever have that? Like you're playing a game, it's just like, I don't want to do this. I just want to get in there and start,
Yeah, they're like, oh, just let me do it. Let me do the cool
right.
stuff.
Let me get in.
All right, so what's the equivalent in comics? How many pages do you give it?
In comics, we write basic book is around 20 pages. In a video game, could be a couple of hundred, at least. And that's just basic scripting. That's just basic breakdowns.
Sure.
We're talking documents. We're talking major. And then from our hands, I mean, for Injustice, it was mostly on NetherRealm. I mean, we were just brought in to make sure the tone and check the story and stuff like consultants. But the actual nitty gritty of it is all, man, it takes years. It takes years to get together. So I think it's worth it.
Who's your go-to character in Injustice?
I love Batman. I'm a Batman fan, so I love it. I mean, I like the moves. I like the Aquaman moves. There's so many great little pocket universes and things going on in that game. It's never ending. And again, for Justin and I, we just helped him out with this one part, and we didn't see the game until later. So it was like, oh my God, that looks amazing, and so that's the kind of fun of it as well.
What about you, Tony?
I'd probably go with Batman.
Batman.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys played the Batman Arkham series?
No,
Arkham
I haven't even
Asylum?
seen it yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Arkham
the other
Origins.
ones. Not the Origins.
Not the new one coming up.
Yeah, it's awesome. What's great about these games? They're getting better. They keep getting better.
They really are.
So, if I can go jump forward in time 10 years to see what comes out, I'm really interested. I always say the fear of me is I'm getting hit by a truck and I don't get to see that next thing that comes out. And that sounds silly, but you kind of think of that when you cross in the street back here in San Diego.
And there are
about
trucks
getting hit.
and trains.
And you know what the worst thing would be? To get hit by a truck that has your video game on it, on the side of it. Like actually get killed by the Injustice truck would be pretty sucky. But that was last year, so I don't have to worry about
You're
it this
safe
year.
this year.
I'm safe this year. They had their shot and they missed it.
Embarrassment. Well, let's talk about the future. You're writing Jonah Hex. Are you working on any other games currently?
We're in discussions about a game I can't talk about, but
sure.
We hope it goes through. A lot of times the process is company calls you and says, you know, what would you do with this property if you guys were to write it? So we're in that stage. So we gave a pitch. You know, it's a coin toss. Whether you get it or not, it's just the right guy has to read it the right way and say that's what I want. But that's it for now. Mostly just the comic books, doing All-Star Western and Batwing for DC, and
Harley Quinn just announced.
Harley Quinn announced for DC, and then Painkiller Jane at Icon at Marvel, and finishing up a bunch of books there. So it's constantly busy.
Yeah, seriously.
I rest only to call Tony once in a while and cry on his shoulder. And that's about it.
Is he there for you?
Yeah, he is always there for me.
Or when you got a Kickstarter.
On Twitter. Or Kickstarter, yeah. Kickstarter is my other world, you know. But yeah, I do a lot of Kickstarter books, and
oh really?
And those are great because when you deliver a product people want, they tend to come back. What a concept!
Imagine that.
You know, it's surprising how many people don't realize that. Yeah, it's a little secret I just gave out. So give the people what they want, they come back for more.
All right, Jimmy Palmiotti, thank you so much for coming on, talking the craft here on GameSpot's live stage show. Folks, we'll be back in just a second with Tony and another comic book artist guest whose name escapes me right now. Tony, who is it?
Tony Daniel.
Tony Daniel?
Yep.
He's awesome, Tony Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm a big
You guys
fan.
want to give a little Tony Daniel preview? What can we expect from this guy?
Incoherence, total incoherence.
Excellent. Total incoherence coming up next. But for now, we're going to go check in with Homer, who's looking at the Microsoft booth. Presumably some Rise, Son of Rome, maybe a little Killer Instinct in there. Check it out.